Well, hi there, team, and welcome to this new episode of the Easy Agile Podcast. My name is Tenille Hoppo, and I'm feeling really quite lucky to have an opportunity to chat today with our guest, Henrik Kniberg. Henrik is an Agile coach, author, and entrepreneur known for pioneering Agile practices at companies like Spotify and Lego, and more recently for his thought leadership in applying AI to product development. Henrik co-founded Abundly AI, and when he isn't making excellent videos to help us all understand AI, he is focused on the practical application of generative AI in product development and in training teams to use these technologies effectively. Drawing on his extensive experience in agile methodologies and team coaching, Henrik seems the perfect person to learn from when thinking about the intersection of AI, product development, and effective team dynamics. So, a very warm welcome to you, Henrik.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Great. Well, I'll jump right in. I think that most people would agree that motivated people do better work. So,
Yes.
where I'd like to start today is by touching on the very human element of this discussion and helping people to maintain momentum and motivation when they may be feeling some concern or some uncertainty about the upheaval that AI might represent for them in their role. What would you suggest that leaders do to encourage the use of AI in ways that increase team morale and creativity rather than risking people feeling quite concerned or even potentially replaced?
Right. Yeah, there are kind of two sides to the coin. There's one side of the coin is the, oh, AI is going to take my job and I'm going to get fired. And the other side of the coin is, oh, AI is going to give me superpowers or and give us all superpowers and thereby give us better job security than we had before. So I think it's important to press on the second point, to kind of, as a leader's perspective, pitch it as this is a tool. And we are entering a world where this tool is, a crucial tool to understand how to use in a similar way that everyone uses the internet. We consider it obvious that you need to know how to use the internet. If you don't know how to use the internet, it's going to be hard. So a little bit that way of thinking of it. And then I also find that people tend to get a little bit less scared once they learn just to use it. It becomes less, it's like if you're worried there's a monster under your bed, maybe look under your bed and turn on the lights, right? And maybe there wasn't a monster there, or maybe it was there, but it was kind of cute and just wanted a hug. I don't know. So yeah, encourage people to experiment, give them access to the tools to do so, and encourage sharing. And don't start firing people because they get productive.
That's an excellent point. I hope people hold on to that. Um, talking about that experimentation, and I've read that you encourage experimentation with AI through learning. I agree it's the best way to learn. What would you encourage leaders, team leaders, and to do to create that a strong culture where teams feel safe to experiment?
There's there's some things, I guess. One is pretty basic. Just give people access to good AI tools. And that's quite hard in some large organizations because there's all kinds of resistance. There's like compliance issues, data security issues. Are we allowed to use ChatGPT or Claude, or where is our data going? And there's all these kind of scary things that make companies just either hesitate or even just outright try to stop people, saying, no, you're not allowed to use these tools because we don't know exactly what happens with the data. Start at that hygiene level, address those impediments and solve them. Because yeah, when internet came, it was really scary to connect your computer to the internet. But now we all do it. And you kind of have to, or you don't get any work done, right? So now we're at this same similar moment where it's like I have this network cable. Am I going to put it to my computer? Doesn't that mean my computer is connected to all other computers in the internet? Yes, it does. Did this thing just thumb up me? That's funny.
It
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
It agrees.
And so yeah, start at the basic level, give people access to tools and address the organizational impediments that are in the way. And if that means creating clear guidelines for when and how to use the tools, or if it means running local models, or if it's a matter of training, whatever it is, solve it so people get access to the tools. Ironically, when companies are too strict about restricting people, then what people tend to do is just you get shadow AI. People just use it on their own in private or in secret, and then you have no control at all. So start there. And once people have access to the really good AI tools, Then it's just a matter of kind of encouraging and creating forums. So encouraging people to experiment, create like knowledge sharing forums, share your own experiments. Try to, role model this yourself. Say, I tried using AI for these different things, and here's what I learned. And also provide paths for support, like going to training courses, things like that.
Mm. What do you think or what would you encourage in team members as far as their mindset or their skills go? Certainly a nature of curiosity and are willing to learn and experiment. Is there anything beyond that that you think would be really key? Any particular skills that you would encourage, say, developers or engineers to have?
Um, yeah, it is a bit of a weird technology that's never really kind of existed before because we're used to like there's humans and then there's code, right? And humans are like intelligent and kind of unpredictable and we hallucinate sometimes, but we like being humans, we like working with humans, and we're mood driven and emotional and but we can do amazing things, right? And code is dumb, executes exactly what you told it to do, and it does so every time exactly the
Mm,
same way. But it can't reason, it can't think, and it's never going to be in a bad mood and never have a cold. You get these two different things, and a very clear distinction between them. Now we have AI and AI agents, which are right kind of somewhere in the middle. They're not quite as predictable as code, but they're a lot more predictable than humans typically, and they're a lot smarter than code, but maybe not quite as smart as humans, except to some tasks when they're a million times smarter than humans. So it's weird, and so you need a kind of humble attitude where you come at it with a kind of mindset of curiosity, like this is I'm going to learn how to use this, and a part of it is also to realize that a lot of the limitation is in you as a user. So if you try some tool, let's say you try to use AI for coding, and it wrote something that didn't work, it's probably not the model itself. It's probably your skills or lack of skills because you have to learn how to use these tools, and it takes a while. So you need to have this kind of attitude of, oh, it failed. What can I do differently next time? Until you really learn how to use it.
mm,
But
yeah.
yeah, I emphasize experimentation because it's such a weird technology that people aren't used to, especially with developers too. There can be some aspect of pride as well. Like, oh, this thing, I've been coding for 30 years. Of course, this machine can't code better than me. So you already have this cognitive bias towards this thing is no good, right? But if you instead think of it like, I want this thing to be good. This thing, I want to bring out the best in this tool. And not because it's going to replace me, but because it's going to save me a ton of time by doing all the boring part of the coding so I can do the more interesting parts. That kind of mindset. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
It does. It absolutely does, and it kind of leads me into the next question. Our team at Easy Agile is sort of we're taking our steps and trying to figure out how AI is going to work best for us, and this is the same across our go-to-market teams as well as our development teams.
Yeah.
Um, I know I put the question out to some of our teams to see when I knew that I was going to be speaking to you and asked them what would they like to know, and there were sort of various questions around. I guess people taking their first steps in using AI as a co-pilot and producing code. There's question marks around consistency of code, so sort of maintaining code quality and consistent and clean architecture. But even other things like maintaining that shared understanding of the code base and a shared
Yeah.
understanding of the work as well. What advice do you have for people in that situation?
I would say my first piece of advice when it comes to coding, because this is something I do every day with AI, I've been doing for about 2.5 years now. And the models now, especially Claude 4, have gotten to the level where it's basically never the AI's fault anymore. So if it does anything wrong, it's on you. And so you need to think about, okay, what am I using the wrong tool maybe? Or am I not using the tool correctly? For example, the current market leader in terms of productivity tools with AI is Cursor. And there are other tools that are getting close, like GitHub Copilot, but Cursor is kind of, way ahead of anything else I've seen. And I suspect they're going to stay ahead for quite a while because that team is incredibly competent and they're always iterating really fast. With Cursor, it it basically digs through your code base and looks for what it needs. But if it fails to find what it needs, you need to think about why. It probably failed for the same reason as a human might have failed. Maybe your code structure was very unstructured. Maybe you need to add some, maybe you need to explain to the AI what is the high level structure of your code. So think of kind of like a really smart intern who just joined your team. They're brilliant at coding, but now they got confused about something, and it's probably your code, something in it that made it confused, and now you need to clarify that. So there's ways to do that in Cursor. For example, you can create something called Cursor rules, which is like standing documents that describe certain aspects of your system. So in my team, we're always tweaking those rules, and whenever we find that the AI model did something wrong, then we're always analyzing why. And it's usually our prompt. I phrased it badly, or I just need to add a cursor rule, or I need to break the problem down a little bit. In the same way, like if you go to a team and give them this massive user story, and that includes all these assumptions, they'll probably get some things wrong. But if you take that big problem and you sit down together and analyze it and split it into smaller steps where each step is verifiable and testable, now your team can do really good work. It's exactly the same thing with AI. So this is kind of something you just need to learn as a user. But I find it to be useful to think of, to just assume that AI is brilliant at coding. And if it's failing, it's not because of it, it's because of you.
because of processes.
Yeah, and that
One
and
of
that
the
hurts sometimes as a developer with some
mm,
pride. But with that attitude, you're going to be more likely to start looking for how to make AI succeed instead of saying, it wasn't very good, I'll just do it myself.
one of the other things that came up when I was chatting with the team, and I know you've talked about seeing a significant increase in your coding productivity using AI.
Yeah,
One of our team members that I was speaking to, one of the senior devs, found the same thing. He was outputting code at a much greater volume and much faster speed. But the handbrake that he found was actually their code review processes. That it was still they were keeping the same processes that they had previously, and that was a bit of a handbrake for them.
yeah.
What kind of advice would you have there for a team member who's, I guess, as we're working through and trying to figure out, what are the right ways that a team can use AI and how that's going to be most applicable
Yeah.
to the team?
Yeah, it's funny. This kind of reminds me of the general issue with when you do any kind of productivity improvement. If you have like a value stream, a process where you do different parts of the process, you do some development, some testing, and you have some design and all these different processes. And whenever you take one part of the process and make it super, optimized, the bottleneck moves to somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So if testing is no longer bottleneck, maybe coding is, and when coding is instant, then maybe customer feedback, lack of customer feedback, maybe that's the bottleneck. So the bottleneck kind of just keeps moving, and in that particular case, the bottleneck then became code review. So then I would just start optimizing that. That's not an AI problem, right? It's
Mm.
just that's a process problem. So look at it. What exactly are we trying to do when we review? And maybe we could think about changing the way we review things. Maybe, for example, does all code need to be reviewed? Would it be enough that the human who wrote it and the AI with the human that they agree that this is fine? Or maybe, depending on the criticality of that change, in some cases you might just let it pass. Or use
Oh,
AI help in the reviewing process also.
yes,
So I think
definitely.
there's value in code review in terms of knowledge sharing in a large organization. So there's a trade-off there, right? Let's say the AI gets the code perfect every time. Even in that case, I think having a review is useful. But maybe the review doesn't necessarily need to be a blocking process either. It could be something you go back and look, like don't let it stop you from shipping, but maybe go back once per week and say, let's look at some highlights for some changes we've made. We produce 10 times more code than in the past, so reviewing every line is not feasible, but maybe we can at least identify which code is most interesting to look at, for
Mm,
example.
good point. Thank you. Um, Jumping on to the next question, it's kind of related to Agile, really, and Agile emphasizing people over process and delivering value to customers. Now, with AI in the mix, there's a potential there or in a sense, it raises some ethical considerations potentially. I'm interested in your thoughts in how teams should approach some of these ethical considerations that come along with AI. So, for example, teams trying to or attempting to balance that kind of rapid experimentation that's possible with AI against things that are generally raised with AI around bias, potential data privacy concerns. What are your thoughts in that sort of
Right.
area?
Yeah, I would treat each ethical question on its own merits. I would separate them. But so let's take, for example, Um, data security. Can you just pick one and we'll start with that one? Which one do you think would be interesting to talk about in terms of ethical questions?
Um, the one that I was looking at a few today, the one that springs to mind was, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the company that was involved, but it was sort of large data crunching and involving facial identification in a public space. I guess where AI comes into it there is the providing the tool to be able to um, translate or to process all of that data in a very quick amount of time where previously it just wouldn't necessarily have been possible.
Right. So what's the ethical question then in that case?
I guess it's more so, well, potentially it's more to do with the surveillance and the availability of providing access to a number of different surveillance tools where that facial recognition technology could be used at a really broad scale where
All
previously it
right.
hadn't been.
Right. So when you use AI, yeah, I guess that's a very good example. AI could potentially recognize faces a lot better than any human,
Mm,
right? So yeah, I kind of put that in the bucket of um, any tool that is really useful can also be used for bad things,
mm,
right? A hammer or fire or electricity. And that doesn't have so much to do with the tool itself. It has much more to do with the rules and regulations and processes around the tool. So I can't, I wouldn't really separate AI in that sense. Treat it like any other system. Whenever you install a camera somewhere, with or without AI, that camera is going to see stuff, and what are you allowed to do with that information? That's an important question, but I don't think it's different for AI, really in that sense. Other than that, AI is extremely powerful, so I guess you need to, really take that seriously, especially when it
mm,
comes to things like autonomous weapons and the risk of fraud and fake news. There's a lot of ways it can be really badly misused.
mm. Definitely. I think there's the cliche of the Terminator walking around and making decisions autonomously as an AI. I
Yeah.
feel like we're still some ways away from that kind of thing. I still say thank you to my coffee machine every morning when it makes me delicious
Yeah.
coffee, but I want to be on the right side of history
Yeah,
there.
I think an important part of it is also just make it part of the agenda. So let's say you're a recruitment company and you're now going to add some AI help in screening. At least raise the question, like we could do this. Do we want to do this? What is the
Mm,
responsible way to do it? And it's not that hard, I find, to come up with reasonable guidelines like, okay, obviously we shouldn't let the AI decide who we're going to hire or not. It doesn't take a lot of reasoning to conclude that that's a bad idea. But maybe it can look at the pile of candidates that we plan to reject and identify some that we should take a second look at. There's nothing to lose from that, right?
mm,
Because that AI did some extra research and found that this person who had a pretty weak CV actually has done amazing things before, but they just didn't talk about it during their interview. So now AI is really being helpful. So there's a whole scale of misuse versus really valuable use. We're actually working with a company now, one of our clients, where we're helping them build some AI agents, and our AI agents there help them to classify CVs not by should we hire them or not, but more like which region in Sweden is this? Which type of job are we talking about here? What just classifying this to make it more likely that this job application reaches the right person. And that's work that humans did before with pretty bad accuracy. So, so the conclusion was just by testing that even AI, despite it also has biases like we humans do, but it seemed to have less biases than the
mm,
humans. That was enough for us. Mainly things like it's never going to be in a bad mood because it hasn't had its coffee today, that kind of stuff. It'll process everybody on the same merits, right? Otherwise, there's a lot of research on that. Like if you're unlucky, you happen to meet the doctor in the morning instead of the afternoon, you're going to be less likely to get the correct diagnosis. All these really dumb things that happen because of us being humans. Um, if you use AI correctly, then you can avoid, like there's lots of misuse scenarios you can avoid, but just at least having a conversation about it.
Definitely. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity there to actually remove some bias rather than add additional. But there's swings and
Or even
roundabouts with everything.
now, I think of it like a peer-to-peer thing. Imagine going to a doctor. and I think about ideally, I want to have both there it goes again, a human doctor and an AI doctor side by side. Um, just because they both have biases, but now they can complement. It's like having a second opinion, right? So if the AI says we should do this, the doctor says, no, wait a second. Or vice versa. The doctor says, you're fine. The AI says, no, that looks like a rare form of cancer that I know about here. And then having those two different opinions is super, super useful.
Mm, definitely. Okay. I'd like to have to move on a little bit sorry, start again. I'd like to focus a little bit on agile software development, and you're recognized as one of the leading voices in agile software development. I can see, and I'm interested if you do, see some parallels between the agile transformations that you might have led or that you did lead at Spotify and at Lego with the AI transformations that many businesses are looking at now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I find that when we at Abundantly help companies do like a transitioning towards a more, becoming AI native, a lot of the thinking is similar to with Agile. But I think we can generalize that Agile transformations are not really very special either. Organizational change, there's some patterns involved in there, regardless of you're transitioning towards an agile way of working or towards AI. I think there's just some general patterns there, such as, you got to get buy-in. It's useful to do the change in an incremental way. Balance bottom up with top down. There's all these techniques that I think are useful regardless. But as an agilist, if you have some skills and competence in leading and supporting change process, then that's going to be really useful also when helping companies understand how to use AI.
Definitely. What are the trends you're seeing in, well, I'm interested, you touched on the bottom up or top down sort of the way that things are being led when it comes to AI transformations. Are you seeing more top down or sort of bottom up when it comes to AI?
So far, it's quite new still, right? This whole thing. So I guess the jury's not in yet, but so far it looks very familiar to me. As in, I'm seeing both. I'm seeing situations where it's pure top down, where managers are like, we got to go full out AI, and they kind of push it out with mixed results. And sometimes just completely bottom up, also with mixed results, right? Sometimes something can start completely organically and then totally take hold, or it starts organically and then gets squashed because there was no buy-in higher up. All of that I've been seeing in Agile as well. So my guess it's going to be the same. There's going to be
Mm,
successful top down, failed top down. There's going to be successful bottom up, failed bottom up. But my guess is in most cases, the most successful cases will be when you have a bit of both. So support and guidance from the top, but maybe driven from the bottom.
mm. Leadership creating those right conditions to allow, people who are passionate about this to thrive
Yeah.
and adopt things properly.
Uh,
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
I think it's maybe more important. I think the bottom up is maybe more important than ever because this technology is so weird and so fast moving. So I think as a leader, you just you don't really have a chance to if you really try to control it, you're going to slow things down to an unacceptable level. So people will be learning things that you can't keep up with yourself. So it's better to just enable people to experiment a lot, but then of
Mm,
course provide guidance, right?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You are very well known for your guidance and for your ability to explain quite complex concepts very simply and clearly. I was looking at your video on YouTube today, the Agile Product Ownership in a Nutshell video, which is, I think, from the timestamp it was uploaded about 12 years ago now. So
Yeah.
you've been around for a while. But that is one of the better known pieces when it comes to advice for product ownership and sort of focusing on how to deliver that value iteratively. So I guess thinking about product owners, there's a big opportunity now with AI for generating ideas, analyzing data, and even suggesting new features. So,
Yeah.
what's your advice for product ownership and product managers in using AI most effectively?
Use it for everything. Overuse it so you can find the limits, I guess is one thing. The second thing is make sure you have access to a good AI model. Don't use the free ones. The difference is really large, like 10x, 100x difference just in paying like $20 per month or something. Um, at the moment, I can particularly strongly recommend Claude. It's in its own category of awesomeness right now, but that of course changes as they leapfrog each other. But mainly pay up, use a paid model, and then experiment. For as product owners, typical things are things you already mentioned: ideation, creating good backlog items, splitting a story, but also writing code. I would say as PO, there's this kind of traditional view of, for example, Scrum, that POs should not be coding. And there's a reason for that because coding takes time. And then as PO, you get stuck in details and you lose the big picture. Well, that's not true anymore. There's very many things that used to be time-consuming coding that is basically a 5-minute job with a good prompt. So instead of wasting the team's time by trying to phrase that as a story, just phrase it as a pull request instead and go to the team and demonstrate your running feature. That happened actually today, just now. Our CEO, who's not a coder, came to me with a pull request. And in fact, quite often he just pushes the code directly to a branch because it's small changes. He wants to add some new visualization for a graph or something in our platform, typically admin stuff that users won't see. So it's quite harmless if he gets it wrong. But so he's vibe coding, just making little changes to the admin, which means he never goes to my team and says, hey, can you guys generate this report or this graph for how users use their product? No, he just puts it in himself if it's simple. But now he wanted to make a change with how we handle payments for enterprise customers. Getting that wrong is a little more serious. But the change wasn't that hard, but he just didn't feel completely comfortable pushing it himself. So he just made a PR instead. And then we spent 15 minutes reviewing it. And I said it was fine, so we pushed it. But it's so refreshing that now anybody can code. You just need to learn the basic prompting and then these tools, and then that saves time for the developers to do the more heavyweight coding.
Mm. It's an interesting world, isn't it? Where we can have things set up. You can train a model and have things there that anyone could just jump in and, with the
Yeah,
right guardrails, yeah, create
yeah,
something. It makes Friday demos, yeah, quite probably a lot more interesting than maybe they used to be in the past,
yeah.
potentially.
So I would
Great.
like to challenge any development team to let their stakeholders push code,
Mm.
and then find out whatever's stopping you from doing that and fix that. And then
Excellent.
you get to a very interesting space.
Yeah, for sure. We periodically have dash days at Easy Agile where we kind of drop the usual things that we're working on, and we'll just focus on a discrete project just for 3 days.
Sure.
It's an opportunity to collaborate with people across the business. So I could definitely see myself jumping in with some of the devs. They better watch out. I think I've got some ideas. We'll see
Great.
where we
That's
land.
great.
It'll be interesting.
Bring it on.
Um, Great. Well, I guess speaking about user collaboration, and it brings me to my next question. And a key insight from your work with Agile teams in the past has been to really focus on minimizing that gap between maker and user.
Yeah.
Do you think that AI helps to close that gap, or do you think it potentially risks widening it, pardon me, if I guess if teams are focusing too much on the use of AI to AI predictions and stop talking to their customers effectively and start to lose sight of what the customer really wants?
Right. Yeah, I think that of course depends a lot on the team, but from what I've seen so far, it massively reduces the gap because um, if I don't have to spend a week getting a feature to work, I can spend an hour instead. Then I have so much more time to talk to my to my users and my customers. And if the time to make a clickable prototype or something is a few seconds, then I can do it live in real time with my customers, and we can co-create. So there's all these opportunities. So yeah, I find that it's I have like myself, my teams, and the people I work with. We work a lot more closely with our users and customers because of this fast turnaround time.
And it certainly accelerate the contact with customers. When, as you say, if you're in an interview and doing some user testing and they make a suggestion, you can just spin that up pretty quickly and then got a working
Yeah,
prototype right there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's
great.
quite astounding how how quickly some things can be done. Just yesterday, I was teaching a course, and I was going home. I was sitting on the subway, and it was a 15-minute subway ride. About halfway through the subway ride, I finally got a seat because it was full. The subway I got a seat, so I had only 7 minutes left. And there's this feature that I wanted to build that involved both front end and back end and a database schema change. Well, 5 minutes later, it was done, and I got off the subway and I just pushed it. It's like that's crazy.
Yeah.
It was just a problem. Of course, our system is set up optimized to enable it to be that fast. But and of course, not everything will work that well. But every time it does, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I've been coding for 30 years, and I feel like I wake up in some weird fantasy every day, wondering, can it really be this productive? I never would have thought that was possible.
Well, I guess thinking ahead, and I'd like you to put your futurist hat on for a moment, and to ask sort of how you see the future of agile teamwork, say in 10 to 15 years' time. I guess if we were to have this conversation again in 2035, given the exponential growth of AI and improvements in AI, even over the last, 2 to 3 years, in 10 years' time, what do you think would be the biggest change for software development teams in how they operate?
So I can't even imagine 10 years. Even 5 years is just beyond imagination. That's like asking someone in the 1920s to imagine smartphones and internet. I think that's a level of change we're looking at, where it's hardly even worth asking the question if, to someone in the 1920s what smartphones and internet would look like, you know? So I would shorten the time a little bit and say maybe 3 years, 4 years. And my guess there, and I'm already seeing this trend start to happen, is that coding will just go away. It just won't be stuff that we humans do because we're too slow and we hallucinate way too much. Um, and but I think engineering and the developer role, it will still be there. Just that we don't type lines of code in the same way that we no longer make punch cards, or we no longer, most of us don't write machine code and poke values into registers and using assembly language, right? That used to be a big part of it, no longer. So I think in the future, as developers, some of the work will still be the same. You're still designing stuff, you're thinking about architecture, you're interacting with customers, and you're doing all the other stuff. But typing lines of code is something that we're gonna be telling our kids about, and they're not gonna believe that we used to do that.
It's a
That's
bit like the
that's one change. The other is smaller teams, which I'm already seeing now. I think the idea of a cross-functional team of 5 to 7 people, traditionally that's something that was considered to be quite necessary in order to have all the different skills needed to deliver a feature in a product. But that's not the case anymore. Even now, that's not the case. For teams to understand how to use AI, you don't no longer need that. And if you skip ahead 2 or 3 years, when maybe everyone, when this knowledge has spread, then I think most teams will be 2 people and an AI. Because then you have all the domain knowledge you need probably. Uh, and then as a consequence of that, we'll just have more teams, is my guess. So more and smaller teams. And of course, then you need to collaborate between the teams. So cross-team synchronization is still going to be an issue. Yeah, that's one. I think also I'm already seeing that now, but this concept of sprints. I mean, the whole point is to give a team some peace of mind to build something complex, because typically you would need a week or two to build something complex. But now, when it takes a day and some good prompting to do the same thing that would have taken a whole sprint, then the sprint is a day instead. And if the sprint is a day, is there any difference between a sprint planning meeting and a daily stand-up? Not really. So I think sprints will just kind of shrink into oblivion. But what's going to be left instead is, I think, going to be something a little bit similar, which is some kind of a synchronization point or follow-up point. So instead of a sprint where every 2 weeks we sit down and try to make a plan and then kind of create a space of not too much change happening, I think it'll be very much continuous delivery on a day-to-day basis. But then maybe every week or two we take a step back and just reflect a little bit and say, okay, what have we been delivering the past couple of weeks? What have we been learning? What's our high-level focus for the next couple of weeks? So like a very, very lightweight equivalent of a sprint, is my guess. I feel pretty confident about that guess because personally we're already there with my team. It's and it just I think it'll become a bit of a norm.
Hmm. You're setting the models again, Henrik. It's nice to see that you're
just
keeping up
exploring
with.
the space.
No, that's excellent. Thank you very much. That comes to the end of my questions. I'm really. This has been a fantastic discussion. I'm really great that you could make the time for us today.
Cool. Yes, super interesting questions. These are the kind of stuff I've been thinking about a lot myself. And it's interesting. And my guess is we'll be sitting here in 2 or 3 years laughing at what we were talking about now because getting half of the
Yeah.
things completely wrong. It's so hard to predict.
But it is. It's, it's like coming up with a crystal ball to see what's going to happen in the future. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to think about.
Yeah. Although I would say one kind of, I like to tell people that no one knows what's going to happen in the future, and those who say they do are kidding themselves. But
Yeah.
there's one fairly safe bet though, is that no matter what happens in the future with AI, um, if you understand how to use it, you'll be in a better position to deal with whatever that is. So that's why I
Mm.
just recommend people to kind of get comfortable with it, get used to using it.
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting discussion. I have a teenage daughter who I'm actually trying to encourage to learn how to use AI because I feel like I think when I was her age, the internet was the thing that was sort of coming mainstream and was the thing that
Yeah.
we all needed to learn how to use, and it's completely changed the way we live. It's you don't go to a bank teller anymore if you don't have to. Everything is
Yeah.
done online. My groceries are ordered online. Everything is
And
online.
even this pod, you're in Sydney, I'm in Stockholm. Like this is
Exactly.
science
Never
fiction.
possible previously. Yeah. And I feel like AI is that piece for her now, for children that age. I know when it first came up at schools, it was don't go near it, like because it was
Yeah.
all about plagiarism and people were
Yeah.
using it for, kind of lazily, really, just to spit out answers to things. But it's moved on, and the capability of AI has moved on so much now that it's something that she's really going to have to learn how to use, and I'm sure we'll be using extensively throughout her
Yeah,
career.
isn't it weird that the generation of small children growing up now are going to consider this to be normal and obvious?
Yeah, well, they'll be the AI natives.
Yeah,
We'll,
they'll be
we'll
like,
have to come up with a word
what's
for
the
that.
big deal? Of course, I have
Yeah,
my AI agent buddy. That's nothing weird about that at all. Like,
yeah, yeah. I'll still keep being nice to my coffee machine. It's
yeah,
good.
that's good. Just for in case,
Yes.
better to do that.
Excellent. Well, Henrik, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.